an effort to ramp up the scares, horror's often layered in mysteries. Whether the story involves a serial killer or a demon, there tends to be an unknown factor that amplifies the suspense and tension. Of course, by the end of the movie, the curtain's usually pulled back and all the dirty secrets spill out. However, there are plenty of slashers, sci-fi flicks, and creature features that conclude with their biggest questions still left unanswered. Rather than having the audience spoon-fed with exposition, those horror hounds are allowed to draw their own conclusions. So with that being said, I'm Jem from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 horror movie questions that will never be answered. Number 10. What was the alien invasion in 10 Cloverfield Lane? Even though Cloverfield was a monster hit, there was initially a little evidence to suggest a sequel was in the works. As a result, Matt Reeves' found footage flick seemed like a one and done. But while Bad Robot was working on a micro-budget production called The Cellar, it was decided to turn the film into a blood relative of Cloverfield called 10 Cloverfield Lane. It was nice to see Cloverfield being turned into a franchise, since there would finally be some explanation of where the city destroyers from the original came from. Instead, the follow-up left more questions than answers, focusing on a woman Michelle trapped inside a fallout bunker with the deranged Howard. After Michelle leaves the bunker, she's attacked by an extraterrestrial, which she quickly disposes of. But as she rides off into the proverbial sunset, a gigantic UFO is seen hovering in the sky, indicating the alien nightmare is far from over. This was a pretty jarring way to end the movie, since it didn't tie in with the events in the first installment. Though Cloverfield dealt with an alien being, the extraterrestrial Michelle encountered had no resemblance to that monster, so it's not clear how they're connected. Number 9. Who's Billy in Black Christmas? Not only is Bob Clark's Black Christmas a solid flick in its own right, it was instrumental in spawning countless other slashers. If it wasn't for this 1974 proto-slasher Halloween, Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street may have never come to pass. The story centers around the psychopathic Billy, who calls his victims before murdering them. When the final girl, Jess Bradford, encounters Billy during the third act, it looks like the killer's identity is about to be revealed. But, save for his haunting eye, Billy is never seen. His past remains a mystery. The motivation behind his killing spree is never explained, and since Billy is proven to be alive in the closing shot, it's not clear whether he killed Jess or not. Fortunately, this lack of answers did not stop Black Christmas from being an eerie horror picture from beginning to end. It just goes to show that there are times when the best explanation is no explanation at all. Number 8. How did Elaine die in Beau is Afraid? Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid plays out less like a movie and more like a fever dream or nightmare. Through a series of flashbacks, it's evident Beau has rarely experienced joy thanks to his manipulative mother. Mona told her son that his father died from a heart murmur the moment Beau was conceived. Since the condition is hereditary, Beau lives in constant fear, believing he'll suffer the same fate if he has sex. During the film's literal climax, Beau is unable to control his urges and sleeps with his long-lost love, Elaine. But he's surprised to learn that he's perfectly fine, indicating Mona lied about his condition to control him. However, when Beau looks up, he sees Elaine has died midway through. But how? Did he manifest his fear into reality and pass it on to her, or did she simply die of a stroke? Or was it something else? Unfortunately, there's literally no answer. Number 7. What does the Entity want in The Endless? Serving as a semi-sequel to Resolution, The Endless revolves around two former cultists, Aaron and Justin. Unable to integrate into modern society, the friends return to the religious commune hoping to find closure. During their stay, the pair witness an unseen entity performing miracles, causing Aaron and Justin to reevaluate the group's intentions. But when they discover this invisible being is trapping members in time loops for its own amusement, Aaron and Justin decide to leave. Luckily, the duo escapes the commune just as the entity kills everyone in the cult and obliterates the area too. Though it was a relief to see Aaron and Justin narrowly make it out alive, they're still clueless as to what they're up against. Since the entity's power is beyond comprehension, it's surprising why it wasted time with the cult in the first place unless it had something to gain. Number 6. What happened to Brian in Brain Damage? In this underrated body horror Brain Damage, Brian discovers a worm-like creature has hijacked his brain. Rather than killing Brian, it floods his host's cerebral cortex with endorphins, allowing him to feel true happiness and promising to let Brian re-experience this euphoria in exchange for victims to feed on. Brian tries to fight it off, but is compelled to obey the parasite. Thankfully, it's killed during the final confrontation, allowing Brian to break free from his control. Or so it seems. In the last scene, Brian's brain swells up like a balloon, causing his skull to split open. At first, it seems like Brian is surely dead. After all, most people need a head to stay alive. But as he turns around, Brian is revealed to be still among the living, now with an overbearing light beaming out of his exposed forehead. And then the credits roll. So what's happened? Did Brian's connection with the parasite endow him with newfound powers, or is he evolving into a higher being? Is he turning into a creature like the parasite? Even though there's plenty to explore, Brain Damage never spawned a sequel, leaving this cliffhanger permanently open-ended. Number 5. How is Christine alive in Christine? In this Stephen King adaptation, antisocial high schooler Arnie purchases a 1958 Plymouth Fury called Christine, hoping it'll make him popular. Shortly after, Arnie discovers his prized possession has a life of its own. Stranger still, Christine has a nasty habit of murdering anyone who disrespects her or her owner. As his obsession over Christine grows, Arnie uses his sweet ride to torment everybody that bullied him. Due to the supernatural premise, it's expected there will be some clarification on how Christine is alive despite being, a car. How is she able to manipulate Arnie, and why is she so evil? How does she magically heal after being torn to shreds? All good questions, but too bad the characters never try to understand how Christine came to be. Although the book implies Christine's possessed by the daughter of the wife of the original owner, the truth is left up in the air. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, drop us a like, share and subscribe too. Number 4. Who was the driver in Duel? There's no doubt Jaws is directly responsible for launching Steven Spielberg's filmmaking career into the stratosphere. However, it wasn't the first time the renowned director devised a tension-riddled story surrounding a mostly off-screen antagonist. 4 years earlier, Spielberg directed the TV movie Duel, centered around a salesman named David. Desperate to make a deadline, David overtakes a tractor-trailer on the road. For some reason, the unseen driver takes David's actions very personally and begins to chase him with murderous intent. This antagonist leaves a huge impression despite the fact his face is never shown. However, the lack of exposition makes this hidden adversary more terrifying, since he comes across as an evil force of nature rather than a generic baddie. Having said that, it hasn't stopped fans speculating why the trucker overreacted the way he did. Maybe he's a psychopath who was looking for someone to kill, or perhaps he suffered a recent tragedy, so the smallest infraction caused him to snap. On the other hand, he could just be a real stickler for road etiquette. Half a century after Duel's release, we are still no closer to getting an answer. Number 3. What does the creature look like in John Carpenter's The Thing? There has been a whole ton of debate behind The Thing's ending, revolving around whether McReady or Childs has been absorbed by the alien. However, there's another lingering mystery that is yet to be resolved. Since the titular monster takes on the likeness of anything it comes into contact with, its true form is never revealed, which begs the question, what does the Thing look like? In the original novel, Who Goes There?, the extraterrestrial is described as a tentacled creature with 3 red eyes and a worm-like blue hair. However, the 1982 adaptation kept his appearance more ambiguous. Not giving the Thing a consistent look was a smart move, since it amplified the unknown factor, making it scarier and fittingly more alien. Nevertheless, it hasn't stopped viewers obsessing over the critter's original form. Its background is so vague, it's impossible to guess. The creature could be a conventional-looking alien, a humanoid, or some form that mankind cannot fathom. Its size is also highly debatable. For all we know, it could be the size of bacteria, and can only be observed under a microscope. Not only is it impossible to know the Thing's true form, it's not known whether it has one. Number 2. What caused the birds to attack in The Birds? Loosely based on Daphne du Maurier's novel of the same name, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds follows Melanie, a socialite who heads to a village to pursue romance. However, her plans hit a snag when the local birds grow hostile and inexplicably attack anyone they see. At first, the premise doesn't sound that scary. After all, there are much worse predators to be hunted by, but after seeing people having their eyes pecked out, there's no question these feathery fiends are a bigger threat than they appear. On top of that, there's no effective way to fight back, since the pesky birds number in thousands. Scariest of all, no explanation is given on why a swarm of seagulls, crows, and pigeons abruptly decided to wreak havoc on mankind. Stranger still, they just as suddenly stop their onslaught in the final scene, allowing the lovebirds to leave. Although it's reassuring to see the birds return to normal, why have they had a vendetta against the town's inhabitants in the first place is anyone's guess. And number 1, what did Winslow see in the light? The lighthouse. Robert Eggers' dreamlike horror opens with Ephraim Winslow readying to work in a lighthouse alongside eccentric sailor Thomas Wake. The pair's relationship is frosty from the get-go, with Wake telling Winslow he'll suffer a Promethean punishment if he enters the lighthouse top. As the antagonism between the lighthouse keepers grows, Winslow begins to hallucinate, seeing mermaids and perceiving Wake as a destructive deity. Though it could be argued these terrible elements merely exist in Winslow's head, the final scene implies otherwise. After Winslow gazes into the lighthouse upper lantern, he's overcome with pain, causing him to collapse down the staircase. In the closing moments, seagulls are seen pecking away at Winslow's exposed organs. Now, the final shot is a nod to the Greek myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods. As a punishment, Prometheus has had his liver endlessly eaten by birds. As such, Wake's warning seems fitting. So, if the fantastical aspects merely occurred in Winslow's imagination, why did he react the way he did while looking into the lantern? Was he merely blinded by the light, or did he suffer the wrath of gods? If it's the latter, is there some truth to Winslow's earlier visions? Sadly, The Lighthouse feels like the type of movie that will be debated for decades without anyone getting closer to the truth.